Welcome to another episode of Roof It Up. Today, I'm super stoked to have Alexx Leyva with us. I'll talk a little bit more why I'm so excited to have you with us, Alexx. But Alexx is an 8-figure entrepreneur and also a business advisor for growth. Like, it's incredible how he helps businesses go to the next level. So Alexx, we're super stoked to have you. And also, I'm going to mention that he lives in the beautiful island of Hawaii. Hello, goals, totally. So Alexx, welcome. If you could share with everybody a little bit about yourself, that would be amazing. And we're super excited to have you with us today.
Thais, thank you so much for having me on. It's such an honor, such a pleasure to be here. Thanks for the warm introduction as well. I scaled and sold an 8-figure tech company.
Nice.
I'll probably tell you more about that during the interview, and then I also have a bachelor's in exercise and wellness, and I help people optimize their health and performance. And I am a business growth advisor with the team at 2X. If you've heard of them, I know you have. And so
Absolutely.
I advise over 20 different companies and help them grow and scale. So,
yeah. And I'm totally biased, but Alexx is actually our 2X coach. And yes, the man has totally helped us scale, which we're so thankful for. So if you haven't heard of 2X, totally check them out. We'll definitely share more about them too as well. That you sold an 8-figure company, a tech company, which is awesome. If you're watching this like on YouTube or platforms there, you'll see that Alexx, you still are pretty young from what we're seeing here. So you've accomplished a lot. So, okay, can you tell us a little bit about your experience taking over? I know part of the whole entrepreneurship, you took over a company that was already existing. And so how was that? Being able to scale the business and take it to 8 figures what's a little bit about that story?
Yeah, I'll try not to make it too long, but it is a crazy story. When I was in college, I went to school for a degree in exercise and wellness, and near the end of graduating, I actually wrote a book on building muscle that became a best-selling book. I don't know if I've ever told you about this.
No, that's so crazy. That's awesome. You got to tell us the name of the book.
Yeah, it's called Muscle by Saenz. It's a little bit old now. I stopped promoting it, but I was starting to build a supplement company around that brand. And around that time, my dad got diagnosed with early onset dementia and multiple sclerosis.
Oh, wow.
And my dad had started a financial technology company, and that company was my parents' retirement plan. And because of my dad's health issues and stuff going on, he was kind of not making the best decisions in the business, and it was in a tough spot. But, so they were kind of struggling. They didn't have a plan for the future. And I had my stuff that I was working on, but I felt like I needed to come in and help my dad. And so me and a couple of my brothers joined in our dad's company, retired him out so he could focus on his health and getting better. And we actually were able to take over the business and scale it from 3 million to about 10 million in annual revenue. And then we sold it off for 8 figures, retired mom and dad. And it was a crazy story. So I'm very lucky because I didn't have to start from scratch with that business. I've had a couple other startups since then and work on other companies now, but that was where I learned everything. So it was a crazy experience.
So one, I have to say, that is as a parent myself, you kind of look at it and you're like, man, what you and your brothers, one, just stepping up to the plate, hey, we feel like we need to really go and help mom and dad. That's phenomenal. Seriously, congrats to your parents for raising awesome guys. You say brothers, I'm like, how many of you are there?
Yeah.
How many were there?
So there's 6 of us total. I have 5 brothers. I'm the second oldest. As far as the ones who were in the business, there was 4 of us who were involved at different times, but me and another brother were the main ones that were there the whole time.
Okay, got it. Well, that's so I don't know. It's almost, you totally could write a book on this, saving parents or something. I don't know. It's just awesome. You definitely guys stepped in and have changed the life of your parents, right? And also all those people that were involved as well. So very cool. Okay, so I know you have experience in the fitness industry. Do you feel like that helped you to, in entrepreneurship, help taking over your father's, and also in coaching? Do you feel that all has a correlation, or I know you wrote your book, all that stuff. I almost feel like that shows like discipline. And I could see how that can really have a positive ripple effect in everything that you do.
100%. When I work with new entrepreneurs that are wanting to start a company, I often tell them that one of the best places to start is actually optimizing their own health and performance.
Oh, that's
Because
good.
when you learn how to master yourself and you're controlling things like you're deciding on a program like a workout program and how many times you're going to train per week, and you're starting to measure like your intake and output of calories, right? And trying to hit your macros, like you start to learn how to create plans, how to stick to them, how to execute, and how to like shift based on the outcomes of your actions. And so what I often tell people is like in the startup phase of business, it's really a lot about self mastery most of the time. It's about dropping the things that are holding you back and adopting the things that will propel you forward. And if you can master yourself and do that, then what happens is you develop high value skills and high value habits and consistency, and you start to generate some income. Then the next phase is actually helping others to master themselves. It's small team leadership, right? Where you start to hire in people and bring them in and help them become their best self. And one of my mentors, Vern Harnish, he wrote a book called Scaling Up, and it's an incredible book. It changed my life, and Vern changed my life. But he said that if you want to 10x the company, you have to 10x the team.
Oh, that's
And he told
good.
me that early on, and it hit me hard. And then as I've thought on this even further, I realized like if you want to 10x the company, you need to 10x the team. If you want to 10x the team, you have to 10x yourself.
Yeah.
It's
It
like lead by example, right?
totally. And it's crazy, but it's so true. Like it all starts from the top, right? So it's like, and great teams are not by accident. It's all intentional. And it starts with, as entrepreneurs, the leaders doing that. And one of the, I feel like most difficult things for so many of us to master is control over ourselves, right? So control of like, let's go and do that workout. That's going to have a huge ROI on your body and on your mind. And we can get like really complacent about that, right? Or like what you're going to eat or all these different things. And if we really, yeah, that's so powerful. Like
Yeah.
it all
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Business success is a lot about just mastering the fundamentals, right? And doing them
Right.
day in and day out. But a lot of times us as entrepreneurs, we're trying to like chase shiny objects and distractions. And fitness is the same thing. And the reason why fitness helps so much for entrepreneurs is because you can't get immediate results in fitness, and you don't get immediate lasting results in business generally either, right? So it's like
Right.
with health, you have to push for 90 days, you have to push for a year, you have to push for 2 years. And you might have a one-off bad day, but one-off bad days aren't going to ruin you, but one-off good days aren't going to make you either. Like it's like consistency day in and day out, right? And the same is true in business. And I mean, you're scaling a massively successful company, so I know I'm preaching to the choir,
Thanks.
but hopefully you're just like, holy cow, this is exactly how I see it too, right? Like you had to
Yes.
make sacrifices, you had to give up distractions, you had to adopt new things that actually serve you and build you. And then you had to be consistent with it through the ups and downs of all kinds of crazy obstacles. And then you had to help other people do it too. And then that's when your company scales, right?
Right. Yes. 100%. And I'm like, as you're here, I like just see myself as it's been, a journey. As if you have a business, you're just on this journey. And yeah, there is moments you're like, I do not want to do this. Like, this is tough. But
Yeah.
it's so like the consistency, like there's greater things ahead. So yeah.
Totally. And that's another thing where fitness and health is actually so aligned, because people often think like in our minds, progress is linear, right? But in reality, progress has ups and downs. And so in your fitness journey, like you'll think, oh man, if I just do this, this, and this, the numbers say I'm going to gain 20 pounds of muscle, I'm going to lose 20 pounds of fat or whatever. But the reality is in the day-to-day execution of that, all kinds of stuff happens, right? Like it's like, oh man, I hurt my knee, or oh man, I'm not feeling good today, or oh man, my kids are freaking out and they're screaming at me, or oh blah blah blah. Like there's all these things that come in that make
Yeah.
it this roller coaster. And so if you can get comfortable with that discomfort, then you can do that in business too. And I had another mentor that said being successful is feeling unsuccessful 95% of the time. And I was like,
Amen to that.
right? Like, it's so uncomfortable, but you have to be okay with sitting in that. And I feel like that's another reason why I love strength training, because it's not like it's comfortable, every day is about just pushing yourself for what you have and trying to get a little bit better. And I think business is the same. So.
Oh, that's good. So good. Okay. So what are some common mistakes, Alexx, that you know, as you've seen and as you're helping many businesses grow, including us, is what do you see entrepreneurs make when starting or scaling their business, and how could they avoid them? Like what's a common mistake you often see, and that you would say, hey, try to avoid this?
Such a good question. Yeah, I think, I guess I can start by answering it this way. When I took over my dad's business with my brothers, a lot of people are like, how did you guys go from 3 million to 10 million? Like, how did you actually build an 8-figure company? Like, what did it take? And they
Right.
think that we must have done some flashy, shiny thing. And I think this is mistake number one, is that entrepreneurs think there's some flashy, shiny hack, when the
Mm,
reality is there is not. There is not anything that crazy. There's the fundamentals that you execute consistently.
mm.
So I think mistake number one is chasing shiny things, like people promising, and it's so hard in the current world because every time you go on social media, it's like, I
Everywhere.
promise you I'm gonna get you 30 new clients in 30 days or your money back guaranteed or whatever. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's all distraction. So number one is like falling for the shiny stuff. I love the quote, and I'm gonna butcher it, but the shortcut is the long cut, and the long cut is the shortcut.
Oh,
It's like, if you're chasing all the fast ways of doing stuff, it's actually going to take you longer than if you just commit in for the full journey. That's
yeah.
actually the fastest way.
This is totally off, but I was reading this study they did. When you're at the grocery store and there's a line, a lot of times we're like, oh, we got to jump and go to the shorter line, right? And they did a study, and it's like people constantly jumping lines to go faster. And then when they did the research, it showed like if you just sat on that first line, you actually would have gotten done faster most of the time
No,
than you constantly trying to jump around and try to get a shorter line. Yeah.
no way.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was like, oh, that's so interesting. Cause I'm that jumper. I'm like, oh, I can go there, And then it's like, yeah, they did a study. They're like, yeah, if you just
Yeah,
sat on
that's
that line, just kept going, probably get
that's
done
crazy.
faster.
That's a perfect example. That's a perfect example. I mean, I think the same is true again in fitness, where people are like, they're like 30 days into a program and then they see a new one and they think, oh, this one's going to work better because of blah, blah, blah. It's like, no,
Right.
please just finish what you started. And we do it in
Yeah.
business too. It's like you get far enough in where you get to the point where you notice all the hard things, and then
Mm-hmm.
everything else looks sexier again. And you wonder if you should jump to a new opportunity. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, every opportunity has their hard things, right? There's pros and cons to all of them. Like, the grass is not greener. So like, let's work through where we're at, what we've already committed to.
Yeah, I think, yeah, absolutely. It's like the mundane, the boring stuff is like that can sometimes be very boring or mundane, and just like sticking through it is really what's going to give you the return. And, but it's not fun going through it sometimes. So, yeah, super powerful because there's shiny syndrome, right? I think that's what they call it, the shiny
Yeah,
syndrome.
shiny object
Yeah,
syndrome.
shiny. Yeah. And like you said, you open your phone, you open the internet, everything is like selling you something new, something faster, something better. Um, but yeah, so many times it's not true. Okay, so very good. So how do you balance your personal life? Because I know you're also a father and a husband, and you guys live in the amazing island of Hawaii. How do you balance life with your professional responsibilities, entrepreneurship, coaching, husband, fatherhood? Like how do you balance that out?
Oh man, so like we could probably talk about that for hours in and of itself. And I would love to hear your tips as well. I know you're a mom. I know you're balancing at home. For me, it comes back to, and this is another thing that I love about scaling companies is, and we've talked deeply about this, but if you can get clear on your mission and your values,
Hmm.
then your company scales a lot better. Not in like the fake way of like we have a slogan on the wall, but in a real way of like, this is how we as people live, and we're trying to attract more people like that. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like having that clarity of mission and values is also what helps me in my personal life. So what I've learned to look for, and I won't go in the rabbit hole of like selling partly why we sold that company and all this stuff, but what I've learned to look for is trying to have alignment across personal and professional pursuits so that the overlap helps you to become better in all of them, if that makes sense. So most people will go to a job that they don't care about because they're chasing money, and it distracts them from what they do care about or separates them from what they do care about, which is like their family and their health and whatever, right? So they sacrifice health and family at the altar of wealth. And then what a lot of people think is like, well, if you want to be with your family and have your health, then you have to be poor. And it's like, no one wants that either, right? So
Right.
how do we have all of it? And the way to have it all, in my opinion, is to have alignment through them. So if I build a company that helps me live my health, live my mission, live my values as a person, then when I build that company, it's going to amplify those values, meaning that I can actually be better at living those things. Like it will support me in living those things. So what ends up happening is if I'm building the right stuff that's in alignment with who I am, then it supports me in being a better husband and dad and all of the stuff instead of taking me from it. So I think that the smartest way to do it is to build in alignment with that, and then you can kind of do all, if that makes sense. And it's never easy. It's never easy. I have 3 kids, ages 5 and under. It's chaos half the time, but I'm just saying, like, I also am a man in his 30s who has 3 kids, and I'm still in good shape. I've been able to build businesses, and I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying, like, I think
Yeah.
that alignment piece really helps.
Yeah, 100%. I'm laughing because we're like 5 and under. And I was just listening to a comedian and he's like, everyone who has kids 5 and under, raise your hands. And we're like, yeah. He's like, you know nothing. 1 and 2 older. I'm like, oh my gosh. But yeah, no, very good. Yeah, just alignment. I'm just like, so many times you chase money, but then we hate life, right? And so you're like, I want to spend time with my family, but I do what I hate because it's just like this craziness. And I think you really just have to stop, think, and go like, you just have to align, right? Like, and it takes sometimes making some crazy moves. Like for me, it took me resigning a corporate career that was extremely stable, right? Had all the benefits and all the, the all the things, right? Health insurance, benefit, all this stuff. Like, but yet I was still miserable because like that is, I was never with my family, right? So I was missing out on them. So it's like, you got to align. And I'm so glad to, obviously it's, everyone has their journey, but I think just having that deep thought, like life is super short, finding that alignment. So good.
I agree. And one more thing, if you don't mind, I would love to say,
Yeah.
this, I feel like it's also a tip for how to be successful, and like what you kind of asked, like what trips other entrepreneurs up. I think
Right.
one of the second like biggest things is that everyone's so busy consuming other content that they're trying to model what everyone else does instead of thinking about what would work for them. And I think that the answers to what you need to do and how you need to act, I read a lot, right? And I believe in reading, but I also believe in giving yourself space to sit and connect with God or source or whatever you call it and think about like, what's the best way to do this for you? Because
Right.
your best way is going to be different than mine. And I think what trips people up is everyone trying to be like the people they're listening to, like trying to be like an Alex Hormozy or I don't know who else is big these days. Maybe Grant Cardone or whatever, And I think
Yes.
what's better is like when I see across coaching clients and in my own life, what I see is that the people that are successful are the ones that learn what they want and do it in their way. So like you as an example, I love your story. You're a crazy good example of this, but like you
Thanks.
care about your family, you care about your team, you care about your company. So you've made huge sacrifices, what other people would think is crazy for those things. Like moving to the beautiful island that you live on that I want to come visit you on.
Yes.
And it's the same for me. So it's like some people might be like, oh man, he because he moved to Hawaii, I need to do it too or whatever. It's like, no, you don't. This was in alignment with me, This was in
Yes.
alignment with what we needed, and it's working for us, but you got to figure out that for you, and not try and copy everyone else, if
Yeah,
that
and
makes sense.
I was actually recently thinking of this because I was like looking back at life, and I was like, I would always, there's certain formulas that you hear individuals talk about, like this formula, and this is how you're, successful. And I remember me being stuck in almost like 7 years of just trying to follow this formula, and I could never get it right. And so instead of propelling me forward, it would propel me backwards. So I would feel like a complete failure because I couldn't get the final result that I was seeing that if I followed this formula, I would get, right? And this wasn't like scientific formula or anything like that. It was just, I have to remember back, but it was like, just like how to be, fully, financial this, financial that. So like all these different formulas for financial, or this one that I was really focusing on, and I couldn't master it. And so I just felt like a complete failure. And then just finally said, you know what, this formula isn't for me. Like it just isn't for me. So I have to figure out what it is. And then, and even we can talk about like even in, in the coaching program, like, okay, doing it this way, this is a good formula, but I can't wrap my head around it. I can't get it right. Like I feel like a failure. It's really reducing it. And then realizing,
Yeah.
you know what, doesn't work for your brain. It doesn't work for your style. And there's another way, or you can think of other ways, like, or you can hear about other ways. And then finally, okay, finally this one connects. I get it. I understand it. I can really thrive in it. And sometimes we get really down on ourselves thinking that, because we're like, we're not following, mimicking exactly what they say, and we're not getting to where they are. But like you said, it's like we have to stop and think for ourselves and just like inner words. And like, I believe in God, just like, God, what is it that you have for me and for our life, But it can be hard. We can forget that.
It's so hard. I totally agree. I love what you just shared. And it's just like the world's so noisy again. And I don't think there's
Yes.
a lot of people that are just encouraging people to be genuine and pursue like their path in
Yeah.
alignment with help from God, because I
Right.
do believe that God helps us with this. And I feel like if you take a goldfish and say climb a tree, the goldfish feels like a failure all day long. Like if you take a
Yes.
goldfish even out of water, it's done. But if you
Right.
put a monkey who can climb a tree incredibly well and throw him in the water, like the monkey's done. So it's like you got to figure out where you thrive, just like all these other creatures do, and then you should act in alignment with that. And that's really like a massive accelerator in my eyes. And early
Yeah.
on in business, we ran a financial technology company, right? So it's like all these numbers based, whatever. And I'm not a numbers person; I'm a people
Mm-hmm.
person. And
Right.
so there was this period where I was like, man, I don't know if I have the right skills to do this thing. And then I realized that it was the people skills that helped scale the company. It's the team, it's the culture, it's the values. You have to have the number stuff nailed. So we bring in other people for that. Luckily, my brother's really good at that. But like,
Mm-hmm.
you also have to nail the people stuff, right? And there's always
Right.
debate between each side trying to say I'm better than the other. And it's like, no, definitely not. Both are needed. And I think I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like that's also probably what you learned. Like you're an incredible people person, probably one of the
Definitely.
best salespeople in the world, if I can brag on you, and business owners. And you have so much heart. And I feel like when you chose to lead like that versus probably committing to some strict numbers based whatever regimen, like that's where you thrive, right?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Thanks for the compliment for sure. No, but I'm definitely people. That's my thing. Numbers. Yeah. Thank goodness we have great people that do numbers here, but, but I totally can relate. Okay. So Alex, let me ask you another question. Can you share, cause I know you mentioned about team, which is why we actually asked for you to be our coach. Cause we're like, man, every time Alex talks, like we just feel such connection. Like we understand what he's saying. Like he's really people oriented, which we like. And that's definitely the culture of our business. But like one of the things that you mentioned is like just building a successful team and like culture of a company. Like, what is your recommendation for business owners?
It's a great question. Um, I believe that at the end of the day, you have a business entity, which is like a legal structure, right? But every business is made up of human beings. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
human endeavor. So there's that human component, and humans are driven by emotion. They make decisions based on emotion, and then they justify those decisions with logic. but we're
Mm-hmm.
emotional first, whether we like to admit it or not, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like what happens in the business world is you're given almost this false dichotomy of like it's business owner versus employee. And it's really bad because it's like people have this scarcity mentality of like for the business to win, the employee must lose, or for the employee
Yes.
to win, the business must lose. But it's like it's like almost the business's job to negotiate their pay down so much that the business owner gets a higher ROI or whatever, right? And I feel like this whole frame is completely wrong and it leads to failure. And so my recommendation is that people look back at the human roots of all of it. So the word
Mm.
company in Latin, I'm probably going to butcher this, but if you break the words apart, it means to come together to break bread. So
Oh,
company
I didn't know that.
actually, yeah,
Nice.
so it was actually like people coming together to break bread or earn the bread together. So it's like groups of humans who said, we know we're better together than we are separate. We can do more as a team.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. And I think that's principle number one is thinking of your business that way. So,
Mm-hmm.
they say that the people that pursue money will end up with nothing. But if you can, to quote Zig Ziglar, if you can help enough other people get what they want, you can get whatever you want, right? So
Yes.
that's what you should be looking at with your business. So what I recommend, and you don't have to be a people person to do this, but I recommend that you get very clear on your mission for your company and that it's a transformation based outcome that is something that would inspire your client base, that's numbers based, and that that behind those numbers it will help you hit your revenue targets. That
Mm.
way you pursue that mission, you hit revenue targets, but you do the bigger thing, which is serve your clients to the highest level. And then once you're clear on that mission, I recommend you clarify your values for the company, which um, to quote the book The Great Game of Business, they are the rules of the game, basically. So
Mm.
you're just wanting to establish the rules of the game within your organization. And when you get clear on that, then you attract people that love that kind of stuff. Because the thing is we all have values, whether we put them out or not. Like we all live and act in a certain way, and whatever we're acting in alignment with, those are actually our values. So we should
Mm.
be honest with ourselves about whatever that is and put that into our company, our highest values, so that it's like us acting as our best self, right? And then attracting a
Mm-hmm.
team that loves that stuff. And even just doing those two things, you'll have so much less drama because you're attracting people that think in alignment with those values and are happy living that and that are inspired by that mission. And so then you can just talk about that kind of stuff, and then the team will work together way better and have cohesiveness. And at the end of the day, you serve your clients and you grow the company. So
I
that's just a very high level, but that's what I recommend.
love it. Literally, it's so true. I come from corporate America. No, no offense, corporate America. We're all, it is what it is. But it's like, um, it's like I almost sometimes say I have PTSD from corporate life because
Mm-hmm.
it was like that, right? It's like, it depends. Some companies are great. Ours, I'm thankful for all the stuff I went through, but it's like company against the team. And then when we started Saenz Global, I'm like, it is about the team. Like we succeed
Yeah.
together, we lose together, we win together. And to really build a place where like it's about the team, right? So like I don't know, there's so much research on it. I always say the story. It's like there was a group of they did a research over in Asia, and they wanted to see if they could get the factory workers on the lowest floor to go faster. They do sewing, and so they would put they were like, okay, let's add more light, right? So they invested in more light. And so the team did really well for just like a few days. There was more productivity, but then it went just back to normal. And then they did like all these different other things. And then they finally, what they did is they brought the owner of the company and brought him over to their department. And he just simply said, we really thank you so much for everything you do. We're so thankful that you're part of the team. And that showed that the productivity of that team went up like 45%, and like longevity. So it just kind of brings back. It's like people want to be part of a mission, and it's like building a company, bring the people on the mission with you, is what I always say.
That's so good. I
I
love
don't know.
that.
I
And
know.
you're such a good example of it too. It's like try very hard I see your role and our role as business owners
Mm-hmm.
to try our best to get the outcomes that we can for our employees and our clients. Because if you
Yes.
can do that, you're like unstoppable. You know, you will have happy raving fan clients and happy employees that would do anything for the mission. And it just creates an incredible environment. In our company, we actually had a former Apple executive visit our company. It was crazy, which was super cool. He was one of the first guys in the world to ever have an Apple Watch prototype before it ever came out.
So
And he,
cool.
he said, if I was a younger man, I would come and work in this business because it feels like Apple in the early days.
Oh, that's such a huge compliment.
It's huge. And he said, the reason why is your people are so happy. I've never seen happier people. Like, what are you
Oh,
doing here?
wow.
And
So
I'm just
good.
sharing that to say, like, I think sometimes people are like, oh, mission values, all this people stuff, it's fluff or whatever. And it's like, no, like if you
No.
nail this stuff, you nail
Yeah,
this stuff and you scale, right? Like it's big.
totally. Totally. So good. Okay. Alexx, we're coming to an end soon, but it's like my question here for you is how, like, just to, as we're wrapping it up, like, how do you help entrepreneurs identify and overcome limiting beliefs that may be holding them back? Because there's so much about your mindset. Like, it's not even, it's funny. I grew up in a Latin home. So it's like feelings other than when you're angry or like happy, like feelings of like, I can't do it. Like, get over it. Just get over it. Right. It's like, you're just kind of like, there's no such thing as sadness and depression. Just get over it. But it's like, no, there is limiting beliefs. It's like so much mindset stuff, I believe. But like, how do you help entrepreneurs identify and overcome those limiting beliefs? Like, how do you help them? Because I know you've helped us and many others, but like, what's something that you would say there?
Okay, yeah. I love that. I think it's a great question. So, in my opinion, limiting beliefs happen mostly due to either wrong assumptions about previous experiences you've had or lack of knowledge, basically.
Hmm.
And so when you can fix that, then you can overcome them. So I'll go a little bit deeper into this. You've probably heard the quote before, and I can't remember who said it, that there's basically three ways of learning. There's reflection, which is the noblest,
Hmm.
uh, learning from others, which is the easiest, and then learning from experience, which is like the hardest,
Hmm.
right? And I believe that that's powerful in understanding how to overcome limiting beliefs. So you can basically do three things. You can reflect, so set aside time for prayer, meditation, walking, reflecting, looking at the outcomes of your life and are they what you want them to be? Because
Mm-hmm.
if they're not, then the actions that created those outcomes were incorrect. So
Hmm.
you can actually reflect and think on that, and you'll be able to shift your thinking just by looking at outcomes. Like Jesus said, by their fruits you will know them, right?
Yeah.
It's true in everything. So it's like look at outcomes, reflect on that. If your outcomes aren't what you want, then something that you're doing is wrong. And so you should think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you can't think or solve it through reflection alone. So then you look to other people. And this is where I say and recommend you set aside time to read every day. And reading is more valuable than social media
Hmm.
and other things, in my opinion, because it's just like so hard to get a book out there that like that person really had to focus and crank. Like you're getting their absolute best stuff organized into a book, and you can go super deep, right? So by reading other people's stuff, it will change what you know. It'll change how you think, and it'll expand your understanding and awareness, which will help you overcome limiting beliefs and overcome wrong assumptions.
Oh,
And then the
okay. No, keep going. Keep going because I have a
and then
question for you. Yes.
the third piece, and this one should be huge and everyone should be ready for it, is just experience, which means taking action.
Hmm.
So if you can act consistently, you learn so much more from acting on something than you will just from reading or reflecting. And
Hmm.
we're literally alive. I believe we're alive on this earth and given the ability to move and act because action had to be our teacher, experience had to be our teacher. And what we have going on in life nowadays is so many people that consume, but never implement and act. And so it's like they know theory, but they don't know from firsthand experience. And they end up in this weird, it's basically this huge gap between the ideals of what they know and the day-to-day of how they're living, and however big that gap gets, the in-between is anxiety and depression, basically.
Oh,
If you
so
close,
true.
you can close your actions and get them in alignment with your highest ideals and understanding of how to live, then you feel at peace and you feel good.
Yeah.
So I think that those are my 3 ways to help people get through limiting beliefs, and I just work through that with them, basically.
Okay, if you don't mind, just name them 3 one more time. You don't have to explain the whole bag, but what were the 3 names of them again? What were
Yeah,
they?
reflection,
Mm-hmm.
reading and learning, so learning from others, basically, and experience.
Okay, reflection, reading from others, and experience. So powerful, so true. And I love how you were talking about sometimes, because I have a hard time, total ADHD here. But as like sometimes the book, I love it. The Kindle, when I'm with my Kindle, I'm like, I love it. But then sometimes you just hit on something so good, like when people write a book, typically, right? Because I know now it's like this new marketing thing, but like when they write a book, it's truly like they spent time. They spent usually hours and hours, like, and you can take all of that hours and hundreds of hours of work and read it, and then just the power of the knowledge that you're able to capture and then implement. Sometimes you forget that. We totally forget that because it's like, oh no, I'm going to scroll through social media and I'm just going to get as much as a book, but it's totally not. And a lot
It's
of
not the same. I totally
no,
agree. Like, you can take a book from a 50-year-old person that has the outcomes you want, and you can get 50 years of experience, at least at a high level, when you're 30. So a lot of times people are like, well, how did you scale this company by age 30? Like, what did you know? You must be super smart. I'm not super smart. I just took people smarter than me and swiped and followed their stuff. And so for me, my mentor is Vern Harnish, but what people don't realize, and I want to clarify this, is like, I've literally never met Vern in real life. A lot of times people are like, oh, I wish I could pay, 50 grand to go meet with X guru and whatever, but then they won't read their book and implement it. And it's like, their book is their best stuff usually, like, I literally took Vern's book and implemented it, and just implemented it well enough that Vern wrote about me and like congratulated me and awarded me with something. But it's not like Vern was there
awesome.
holding my hand the whole time.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
consider him a mentor through his work, and
Uh,
I got rewarded. So anyway, I agree with you.
so like it's so funny. I'm like mind blown right now because I'm like, oh my gosh, it just like hit me. It's like I'm gonna get off this podcast and literally immediately go read. I am not even kidding. I'm seriously gonna do that right away. All right, Alex, let me ask you this question as we're wrapping up. Like, first, thank you for taking time to just even be here with us. Like, we really, really appreciate it. And second, like, if our listeners want to get in touch with you or reach out or anything of that, like, where could they reach out to you? Like, on social, anything like that? Or what do you recommend? What's the best way to get in contact with you or to be able to get a hold of you somehow? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not huge online. The way we scaled our financial technology company was through trade shows and other stuff, so I didn't need social media to do it. But if you want business growth consulting, I recommend going to the number 2x.co. 2x.co is the place to go for business growth consulting. And then if you want to connect or DM me personally, you can just follow me on Instagram at Alexx, Alexx.Leyva, Leyva. And I'm happy to help you and support you. But honestly, it's just mostly family pictures and stuff.
Love it. Okay, cool. We'll have all this information for listeners right at the bottom when they are on Spotify or wherever they're at. They're going to go ahead and we'll have all those details. So definitely 2X. Again, huge fan of 2X myself, and our team is as well, because we have literally 2X'd because of being part of 2X. So we're really excited. Well, Alex, again, thank you so much. Really appreciate you. And yeah, I'll see you soon.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me, Thais.
All right. Thanks so much. Bye.